Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating in talking about something called the Daily Horoscope. Now, most of you heard of this or know what it is, but I'm going to elaborate and expound on it anyway for the few of you that don't. Now, the Daily Horoscope, obviously by its namesake, it's a daily horoscope forecast, and a lot of times they'll be in a local newspaper. I can remember when I lived in New York, it seems like there was one in Newsday, and you may find them in some magazines. Maybe if there is a monthly astrology magazine that comes out, or there might be a book that has a forecast for every day of the year for each zodiac sign. The thing about it is, here's the thing. There's some things that are essential to remember in these forecasts, or at least in my opinion. The first thing is, let's take a hypothetical example. I can remember, this was over 20 years ago, don't ask me how I remember this, but I was reading something for either Taurus or Cancer. Now, I read it for Taurus or Cancer because Taurus, as most of you know, is my rising sign and Cancer is my sun sign. Now, when I was looking at the forecast, it said something, Gemini may figure prominently, or something to that effect. Now, if you read a daily forecast and it says somebody of that sign figures prominently, I believe that could also be referring to somebody that might have that rising sign as well. I don't believe that's necessarily limited to a sun sign, because I had a friend that was had Gemini rising, and sure enough, he did figure in prominently on that particular day, and a number of other times when it would say Gemini. Then, but at the same time, it's also going to pertain to people perhaps of the sun sign. Now, one forecast for me read, fixed signs will figure strongly, or something similar. Fixed signs will figure in prominently for that particular day. And I was dealing with a number of fixed sun signs on that particular day, and maybe one or two people that had fixed rising signs as well. So I believe it's applicable to both of these things, whether it's the sun or rising sign mixed in. It could be either and or. Now, another thing which I want to get with people on, and I may have incorporated this in maybe at least one other video, but I'm going to talk about it maybe a little more in this one. Now, when people read their daily horoscope, sometimes it may say something, well, this would be extreme, but let's take a hypothetical example. It says, don't go out today, or be careful walking under ladders, or don't lift a heavy object. The thing about it is, I mean, let's say, for example, if somebody is doing laborious heavy work and they're working in construction or something. I mean, you're not gonna, I can't really see where it'd be plausible to call out and say, well, I can't come in. My daily horoscope says I can't lift anything today. I mean, if you've been doing it for 10, 20 years and you've been okay, I mean, it might be a very minuscule risk, but I think you understand what I'm saying. I think what I really encourage people to do is not necessarily look at the forecast prior to the day starts. In a lot of cases, maybe look at it at the completion of the day and see if it may have fit. I mean, because it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, if it's something in a forecast and they say, oh, beware of contentious situations with others at work. Now, let's say you've got that in the back of your mind and you go to work and you may be thinking, oh no, I'm going to get into a combative situation with somebody, and it puts you on edge during the day. So I don't really necessarily go with reading these forecasts before the day starts, but I mean, that's up to the individual. A lot of people like to do this, and I understand and respect that opinion. Now, if you're hearing something like in a forecast in general, and say you go to YouTube and somebody's got like a general monthly forecast, and you look at that, and it says, well, this month may be good or auspicious for money. Somebody has Jupiter, say transiting Jupiter is going to conjoin their sun or something, or rising sign. That, I mean, I can understand that if it's something generic like that, but I think there's some people that could become very fixated and obsessed with the daily horoscope, and it's important not to do that, and don't let it dominate your existence. That's the main thing. Like I say towards the end of my videos, the stars may impel but do not compel. We still ultimately control our own destiny. Astrological forces might give us some urges, but we don't have, but it's not an irresistible force that we can't resist necessarily. So I mean, I think the one last thing I really wanted to touch up on, and maybe I welcome people to give me your opinion on this and your feedback. When I look at any daily horoscopes, regardless when people look at it, whether it's before the day starts or they look afterwards, most people will tell you, people that study astrology and proficient at the subject or what have you, they will say that look at the sun, look at the description for your sun, moon, and ascendant, and you could derive the best benefits out of this. Now, a lot of people, maybe a lot of the descriptions for the moon fits them, but for whatever reason, it seems like when I look at the descriptions for my moon sign, and my moon sign being Gemini, they generally don't seem to fit. Now, I understand the moon is a strong proponent in a person's horoscope regarding their demeanor, their personality. I believe I have a number of Gemini characteristics, and I do exhibit a lot of those attributes of Gemini. Now, a theory I have as to why maybe the daily horoscope don't seem to fit, whether it's a monthly or even daily horoscope, doesn't seem, the forecasts don't seem to be accurate when I read it for Gemini, don't seem to pertain or apply to me. This is kind of a theory, and this might be kind of stretching things a little bit. Hear me out. Now, when you have a forecasted, if you're going by your sun sign, people, especially people don't know their time of birth, they do a solar chart, and you know they put the first house cusp is the same degree and the same position as their sun sign. And then they look at they can kind of look at transits and things of that nature based on their solar chart. Now, when you look at your daily forecast for your rising sign, now the rising, that's based on your actual natal chart and your precise time of birth. But when you try to see what are you going to do as far as the moon sign goes. Now, there is such a thing, I believe, called a lunar chart, where some people will put their moon on the first house cusp, and they somehow find a way to get all the other house cusp position. But it's just something that I don't see. It's a very common thing. You don't really hear a whole lot about people saying, I'm going to put my moon sign on the first house cusp. Now, if the forecast, like say for Gemini, let's say the sun was in Cancer, right, and the sun was traversing it would be somebody's second house, whether it would be their solar chart or their natal chart with Gemini rising. The second house may be emphasized, and of course depending on the degree of the Cancer sun, and it might say something like a lot of emphasis is put on your financial matters, and emotional security may be connected with your values or your possessions at this time, and don't go and get into any kind of emotional don't let it get you down emotionally, lack of funds or something to that. Let's say it said something to that effect. Well, what are you going to do if I think a lot of the forecasts are based on transits to house positions. Now, if somebody just has the moon in Gemini and it's not the sun or ascendant, it's generally not conventional, I don't think, or customary to put Gemini on a first house cusp and say, okay, I'll put Cancer on the 2nd. So I don't know, I guess the way I'm looking at it is, it's not something where it's, in my mind, it's not necessarily applicable for that reason, because Gemini would not be, I don't see how it's conceivable for me to do a lunar chart where I would put Gemini on my 1st house cusp and then Cancer on the 2nd, because as I stated before, the daily forecasts, monthly forecasts or what have you, are based, a lot of it is based on planets transiting your houses. And I think for that reason, maybe that's why the moon doesn't necessarily, we're not necessarily sensitive to forecasts pertaining to our moon sign. Now, I know there's a lot of you that are going to be saying, well, I think it does impact me on that, and maybe it does for some people, because there's still, I think in a way where it might still impact somebody are maybe aspects from planets that are made to that moon sign. But because you don't really have the moon, it doesn't seem plausible in my mind to base a chart around the moon sign where you would put the moon on the 1st house cusp. I think as far as the transits go, it's not quite as strong, if that makes any sense to you out there. It just doesn't. It seems like to me, what sounds logical, it seems like it pertains more, the daily forecast, to the sun sign and rising sign, because you could create a chart easier around the sun or the ascendant, as opposed to having a chart revolve around your moon sign. I think in summation I would just say that, to kind of sum that up. But anyway, let me know what you think of that, and does that theory sound like it could be conceivable? Does it sound plausible, like it makes any sense to anyone out there? Maybe it has something to do with my theory, but for me, for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem like the Gemini monthly or daily forecasts seem to really fit that strongly for me. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my thoughts on the daily horoscope. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about, actually I'll be continuing my Chiron aspect segments I should say. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.